Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Amy,
Hi.
Jane, and Hannah. Justin, you're here. Jane, Hannah, you are muted right now. It is so good to be with you all this morning. I gotta say that I think I might have jinxed us last week when I said that we have had such wonderful luck and good fortune in not having any significant technical challenges in our Sunday morning services. It turns out this morning we are having technical challenges. So as you all are coming in, I want to let you know that Justin is having some internet problems, so he will not be joining us with video. We will just have his audio.
I'm here. Here I am. Good morning.
You're here. And it also seems like we may be having some other sort of back-end technical issues, so we will just roll with it. So as I was getting ready to come here this morning, I was thinking, our theme is thresholds, right? That's the theme for the month. And I thought, what are the things that we carry with us, right? What do you make sure you carry with you as you're crossing thresholds? Now, some of you might know that I carry a purse with me like almost everywhere I go. And I was like, what do I have in here that I always have? And I think the thing that I always have with me is a bottle of water and a notebook. And I'm curious what you all would have on your list of always have with me when I head out into the world. Either you all that are here on the screen or folks as you're coming in this morning, let us know. What do you carry with you? So Amy, what do you carry with you?
Like you, I almost always have water and sign of the times, my phone. But my phone allows me to have something to write on and with, and that's part of the reason. And then like non-materially, I have my ancestors with me. I lost my sister a few years ago, and it started a tradition of me. When I need help, I ask her for help and I ask my grandfather for help. And so now I'm more aware of those people blessing me and guiding me. And so I always take a reference to those people.
I love that. What about you, Jane?
I actually always have gum with me.
Gum.
Because if
Wow.
I forget my water bottle, I can chew gum. It is, I spent a lot of money on buying gum. It's my happy place, or one of many of happy places.
That's awesome. Hannah, what do you always have with you?
I always have my EpiPen in the summer in case I meet a bee. And the bee would win. So I take an EpiPen and my cell phone and hearing aid batteries.
Oh, all right. And Justin,
Yes.
I'm curious what you make sure to always have with you.
Yeah. It's often a bottle of water. And then I have what I call like the pocket pat down. So I check for my keys, I check for my wallet, and I always check for a mask. But that might change, but I always make sure I have a mask with me when I'm out and about, try to. Those are the things most commonly with me. And of course, the wallet has like pictures of loved ones and family and, all the stuff that wallets have. Yeah.
All the things. That's awesome. Hey, folks, what do you say we go ahead and get started? So, folks, good morning. Good morning and welcome. I am Reverend Arif Mamdani. I am one of the ministers at First Universalist Church, and it is so good to be with you this morning. If you are with us live, you are welcome to say hello in the chat on Zoom or on YouTube. I love that you all are adding in what you are bringing with you. That is fantastic. Let us know you're with us. Let us know where you're joining us from. I also want to let you know this morning that we are offering the live transcript feature on Zoom. So in the More tab down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a place where you can turn on and off this live transcript feature. And if you're using it, you may want to turn it off during the hymns when there are words on the screen. The lyrics to the hymns are on the screen. Folks, all throughout the week, you will discover what we believe by what we do. We are a faith community that is committed to welcoming, affirming, and protecting the light in each human heart. We listen deeply to where love is calling us, and we act with humility, courage, and compassion to create a more just world. We do all of this with a deep commitment to racial justice and dismantling the systems of supremacy and oppression. There are lots of ways that you can get involved with First Universalist, and many of those opportunities are listed in the order of service, which we're going to put a link to in the chat in just a moment. I want to be sure to lift up a couple opportunities in particular. After the service today, everyone is invited to fellowship hour. This is a chance to connect and reflect on the week, on the service, on how it is with your spirit. There is a fellowship space for BIPOC folks. There is also this afternoon after the service, fellowship space for BIPOC folks, a meditation group, as well as a fellowship group for folks in 12-step recovery. Again, all these links are in the order of service. You can check it out and get more information. Also, as this is the first Sunday of the month, we have our First Step group. This is a class, this is a group for folks newer to the church. It takes about 45 minutes, and it is an opportunity for folks who are newer to the congregation to learn more about the church, learn more about Unitarian Universalism, more about membership, and how you can get connected. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, please check it out. The group starts right after the service, and I hope you'll consider joining that. I also want to let you know that religious education is happening this morning. Many classes meet right after the service. Our high school youth group meets later this afternoon, and our youth social justice group meets this evening. You can find links to all of these, as well as more information in your order of service that we shared in the chat. It's also available on our website, which is firstuniversalistchurch.org. Or you can just let us know in the chat and we will help you get connected. Now, folks, I also want to be sure to let you know that next Saturday, we have our Coming of Age services. Coming of Age is a year-long program that our 8th and 9th graders have been participating in this year. It's a program in which they grapple with the big questions in life and the big questions in religion. Things like, why are we here? What happens when we die? What does it mean to be human and alive? And so much more. All of this is part of their writing a short faith statement that describes what they believe in and how they might answer or think about those questions that we talked about. For Unitarian Universalists, this class and the service marks a milepost in their journey as they move from religious education with the younger ones to joining a new set of peers in our high school youth group. This service is a high point of the year for many. The faith statements that our young people create are deeply moving. And I really hope that you will join us next Saturday for one or both services, 11 a.m. for the service with the 8th graders, 6 p.m. for the service with the 9th graders. And if you're wondering why we're splitting it up into 2 services, it's because there are so many youth that opted into this program this year. About 40 are going to be part of this service, which just blows me away. And so I really hope that you'll join us. Details on that are on the website. So friends, that was a lot of words. So let's let go of the words for a moment. Let's settle in together and take 3 deep breaths. So I will cue us, and I invite you to just settle in, roll your shoulders back and down, make space for more breath in your body. We're going to take a deep breath in, slowly let it out through our mouths. All right, and we'll do this 3 times. So deep breath in. Slowly breathe out. Like you're blowing your breath through a straw. Deep breath in. Slow breath out. One last deep breath in, breathing up from our feet. And slow breath out. Friends, it is such a joy to be with you this morning. I invite you to join Rosanna and Lamont in saying the words for lighting our chalice.
Please join me in the words for the lighting of our chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, everyone. I want to tell you a story that a friend of mine shared with me about crossing thresholds. He's an actor friend of mine, also a dancer, a theater maker, and he's on tour in Paris. And it's at the end of his tour, he's actually headed back home for a family emergency. And he has a friend who lives there, who's in school there. And a friend of that friend has a map of the catacombs of Paris. So if you don't know, the catacombs of Paris is like almost an underground city beneath the city. It's ancient, it's centuries old. There's a portion of it that has been used as a cemetery. When the cemeteries got too full, they began to put the remains of the dead down there. Part of it was used as a place to hide for the French during the First World War. They say you can walk through the catacombs from Paris to Versailles. It's huge, and it is forbidden to go down there because it's dangerous. So my friend has heard about the catacombs, and he knows somebody who has a map of the illegal catacombs and who can tell him how to get inside. And so his friend says, you get off at this certain metro stop, and then you're going to follow these train tracks. You'll come to an abandoned tunnel, keep going. Then you're going to come to a bigger abandoned tunnel, keep going. And then you're going to come to a really long abandoned tunnel. Just keep going. And as you're going, look down to your left. Eventually, you're going to see a hole, and that is your way into the catacombs. He said, but first of all, do not go by yourself, because if you get lost, there won't be anybody to help you. Secondly, don't go during the week, because when people come down there, they usually come on the weekend. So if you get lost, you'll be all alone. Nobody will probably find you until the weekend. And watch out for gangs and cops. So on his last day in town, a Tuesday, he calls up his friend and he says, you want to go down in the catacombs with me? And his friend is like, well, I have school, I can't go. So he's like, okay. And he decides to go by himself, right? He takes the metro to the stop he was told about. He follows the train tracks, and sure enough, he comes to an abandoned tunnel, and he walks through that abandoned tunnel, and he comes to a second, longer abandoned tunnel, and he walks through that abandoned tunnel, and he gets to a third really long abandoned tunnel. He cannot see light at the other end of it, and he thinks, okay, I'm on the right track. He's brought some things with him to cross this threshold. He's got a backpack. It's got some bread that he picked up on the way, some water, a bottle of water, and a flashlight, right? As he's walking through that third tunnel, he thinks, oh, wait, there could be homeless people down here. And so he's looking out for homeless people in case it's dangerous. And he's looking down left to see if he can find that hole that he was told about. And he walks and he walks and he walks, and he passes like a little divot in the ground. And he thinks that couldn't be it. And he keeps going. He's looking for homeless people. He's looking down left. And then a little later, he thinks, oh, maybe that was it. And so he goes back and he shines his little flashlight down in that hole. And it's a hole. It's not just a little dip in the pavement. And so he looks, and it's a really, really, really narrow hole. he has to take off his backpack in order to fit into it. So he leaves his backpack behind and he sticks his flashlight in his mouth and he shimmies and squeezes down through this little hole. He describes it as being about 4 feet long, and he squeezes through. And then when he gets out, he stands up and he's there. He's in the catacombs, the part of this place that he's dreamt about, that he's always wanted to explore. He's there. And he says, he describes the first part as being in a really small space. The walls were close enough to touch on both sides of him. He could almost touch the ceiling. It's really dark. You know, he's underground and it's really cold, and he's excited to go explore. So he walks out into the next space, and then he thinks, because he's done a fair amount of exploring, oh, I better leave some markers to help me find my way back. And there's lots of trash in there that people have left behind. So he makes a little arrow for himself at his first intersection, his first corner, to point to the way that he should go to return back to his entrance. And he is thrilled to be in this place. And he walks around, and there's caves and there's small tunnels. He described walking into a tunnel that got smaller and smaller and smaller until he couldn't walk anymore, and he has to turn around and go back out. Or walking through a space that has water that gets higher and higher and higher until he can't go forward anymore, and he has to go back out. And he is having an amazing time doing something that few people ever do. It's exciting, it's thrilling, but then he thinks, oh, wait a minute. What if someone else is down here? And what if they take the trash that I've been using to make my markers to make their own markers? He thinks, oh, I better head back. And so he turns around and he goes back. And as he's going back, thankfully, his markers are there and he can follow them. And he makes it all the way back to a corner. And suddenly there is no marker there. And he can't see any way to get out. And he starts to walk around to see if he can find a way out. And after a while, he realizes that he's just been walking in the same rectangle, and he starts to get scared. He starts to panic. He's alone. He has no food or water, just a small flashlight and a couple of batteries. Who knows how long that's going to last? And he has a flight to catch the same day, you know? And so he starts to panic, you know, like what happens to your body when you panic? His breathing is really shallow. His heart is racing. His mouth gets dry. His palms get sweaty. He starts to shake a little bit because there's that much at stake. Like he could lose his life down there in the catacombs. And he realizes, like, that feeling he's felt it before. As a performer, if you're on stage and something goes wrong, that's kind of what our bodies do. Your heart rate speeds up, your breathing gets shallow, you get nervous, like you can really feel it, and it kind of takes over. And he had a realization, oh, I've had this feeling before, and I know what to do about it. I have some practice getting through this kind of thing. And he said, first, I got to calm my breathing. So he focused on his breathing. And he got his breathing to slow down. And as he got his body to calm down, then he got his mind to get back in the game. You know, like as we get panicked, we get in a situation where our bodies either want to run or freeze, and our brains kind of get taken out of it altogether. But he got his brain back online, and he thought, okay, when I'm in a situation where I don't know what to do or how to go further, what I usually do is I need to change my perspective. And so he took out his flashlight and he started to shine it all around the little space that he was in, up on the ceiling and on the walls and all around the ground. And then he would stoop down and he would get on his tippy toes. He would like move his body into different positions just to be able to see things that he hadn't been able to see before. And as he was swinging his flashlight around toward the ground, he saw these big rocks, and not like the kind of rocks that are natural, but like they look like the kind of rocks that you see along train tracks. And he thought, oh, okay, if those are the rocks that belong to train tracks, then there must be train tracks nearby. And he got all the way down on his hands and knees and he shined his flashlight, and he realized that that was the hole that he came in through. And he also realized that he was so excited to be down there that he didn't put any kind of marker at the entrance. And so sure enough, he crawled back, shimmied back through, and crawled out of that threshold back into the tunnel. And as he emerged from the tunnel back into the fresh air above ground, he said the smells of the grass and everything around him was so sweet. The feeling of the sun on his skin, being back up above ground, was great. But he realized that he would not have been able to come back through that threshold had he not changed his perspective. So that is a story, a real story about thresholds. My friend Bryant is here, I think, so I hope I told it to your satisfaction. Next, we're going to hear Franco Holder and Travis Wayman singing and performing Come My Way.
Good morning, friends. It's Reverend Justin Schroeder. I'm having internet troubles this morning. We shared that earlier in the service, but I wanted to say that again. So I'm just doing audio this morning. And Travis and Franco, thank you. Thank you for the gift of your music and your presence. Thank you. And that is where we might begin this morning. As we enter into this time of prayer, we might begin with gratitude. And so we pray, Spirit of all lives, source that goes by so many names and is ultimately beyond naming. Thank you for the gift of this day, this morning, this hour. Thank you for music, for breath. We've crossed the threshold of night, moved through the doorway into a new day. Thank you. Thank you for spring, for green, for flamboyant, extravagant colors unfurling. Thank you. In the midst of our struggles with addiction, with illnesses seen and unseen, our struggles with grief and fear, may we still lift up words of thanks. May we give thanks for tender mercies, for kindnesses, for hearts that hold our own heart. In the midst of uncertainty and sorrow, in the midst of feeling stuck, thank you, Spirit of life, for people, for creatures, and the creation itself that calls us back to life. to the blessings of life, to the possibilities of life, even amidst the hurt and the trauma. Spirit of love and spirit of life, this is a season of thresholds, of crossing from winter, early spring into spring and summer. As daylight stretches past the 8 o'clock hour, as soil is prepared and readied, and seeds and plants are placed in that soil. This is a season of thresholds. As beloveds, children, and youth and adults prepare to graduate from elementary and middle and high school and trade school or college. This is a season of emergence, as many of us move away from self-imposed isolation, making gentle and tentative gestures back into community and physical gatherings. And as a society, we wonder, are we on the threshold of a new kind of accountability for police officers? Are we on the threshold of a new way of imagining what public safety might look like? As we approach and live into these thresholds, these crossings, these moments of before and after, may we turn to the religious and spiritual tools we have to help us in these transitions, in these threshold moments. May we express gratitude and love for what we've experienced that has nourished us. May we express wonder and curiosity about what is to come. May we express the grief of what is ending, knowing that grief points to the deepest kind of love and care. And may we consciously recognize and name these thresholds as we cross them. And I invite you now to share those things that are weighing heavy on your spirit this morning, those struggles or griefs you hold, and if you are willing to let us hold them with you by sharing them in the chat, by letting yourself be held by the spirit of life and this larger community. I invite you to share those now. And of course, there is joy and gratitude in this space, in addition to the very real loss and struggles that have been shared. And I invite you to share those things as well, those things that you are thankful for, those things that give you joy, even amidst the moments of despair and the seasons of hopelessness. I invite you to share those things that give you hope, that bring a smile to your face, or a yes, yes, yes to your lips. I invite you to share what brings you delight, to name those things now. And this is what we are holding this morning, friends. We are holding real delight and real sorrow. And that is the river that all of us, that is the river of life that flows through all of us. We touch those experiences daily, weekly, over the course of the seasons of our life. We move through unbelievable delight and joy and almost unspeakable grief. It is part of what it means to be human. And when we bear witness and hold that together, we recognize our common humanity. We hold our common humanity. And so we end this time of prayer as we do every time we pray together, that the grip of addiction may be loosened, that the weight of oppression might be lightened, that grief might be shared, that joy might break through, and that love might make every suffering bearable for us all. May it be so, and amen. Let's sing together, Spirit of Life. Friends, it is your generous annual gifts, your weekly or monthly or quarterly contributions to the church's annual operating budget that supports the ministry of the church. And on Sundays, we practice generosity with the wider community. We share our offering plate with organizations and partners in the community. One of those long-standing partners is Habitat for Humanity. We've had a decades-long relationship with them. And back in 2013, many of you will remember that Habitat for Humanity was our holiday giving recipient. We raised over $100,000 to be the lead sponsor for the house that love built. We helped build that house from the foundation all the way to the roof and to the final landscaping touches on that yard. And members of First Universalist are still in touch and in relationship with the family who now lives in this home. It is one of our deepest partnerships, connected to one of our core values, that housing be affordable and equitable for all. And so today our offering will support Habitat for Humanity. And every time we give and receive an offering, it is important to remember that we are all in this great cycle of giving and receiving and growing. Sometimes we give and sometimes we need to receive. And if you are in that place of needing to receive care from us this morning, or financial support from the church this morning, or spiritual support, we're here for you. There's an emergency fund that is available to help with housing, food, medical bills, whatever it might be. And the ministry team and the care companions are here for you as well. There are a number of ways you can support the offering this morning. They are listed on your screen. You can text to give, use our Cash app, mail in a check, or go to the church website. Thank you for your support this morning. Let's listen to Holy Now, sung by David Loth, as we give and receive our offering.
When I was a boy, each week on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest as he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread. Everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two and Jesus made the water wine. I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. And so the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but find it where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, I barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath, 'cause I'm swimming in a sea of it. There used to be a world half there, a heaven second rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Greet a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. Well, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything 7-second rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Thank you. Thank you, David. That was just, it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. Thank you for sharing your music with us. And if you're not noting it, you're getting a lot of love in the chat right now, David. Thank you. Everything is holy now. In those simple words, Peter Mayer captures one of our core theological perspectives and perhaps a related spiritual commitment. And perhaps a related spiritual discipline too. Everything is holy now. Revelation is not sealed. The truth continues to be revealed as our UCC siblings in faith say, God is still speaking. One of my meditation teachers described meditation practice as being speed bumps to the well-worn habits of mind. And I love that notion. I love that notion, and I extrapolate it to mean that spiritual practices writ large are about throwing up speed bumps to our well-worn habits of heart and mind. And I'm reminded of those signs in the subway in London. I'm sure that you've seen or heard this expression, even if you've never traveled there. Mind the gap, they say. They too are a sort of speed bump to our well-worn habits of heart and mind, well-worn habits of body. They accept the fact that as human beings, we will likely not notice the space between the subway platform and the train. And they gently invite us to notice what we may not notice, lest we fall and fall into a world of problems in the process. Everything is holy now. Speed bumps. Mind the gap. Pay attention, particularly as you move between spaces. This gap, this space between is a threshold. And as threshold is our theme for this month, let's hold this image, let's mind this gap as we move a little bit further into that space between. A long time ago now, I had a daily habit for a couple of years. I think I picked it up because of something I heard here at church. In fact, I'm pretty sure I picked it up from a sermon that Reverend Jen preached. But the habit was this. Every morning when my kids were small, as they were preparing to leave the house, there on the threshold of the doorway to our house, I would ask for a moment of stillness. I would look them in the eye. Sometimes I would put my hands on their shoulders. And I would say a blessing to them. I would say a blessing over them. May the long time sun shine upon you. May all love surround you. And may the pure light within you guide your way on. And I would kiss them on the forehead or the top of the head and wish them well, and then off they would go. Now, lest this sound too saccharine and rosy and sweet, let me tell you that some days this blessing was met with rolled eyes. Some days we had just bumped up against each other with harsh words, which were almost always my fault and my failing. Other days we would be running late and the blessing would be rushed. But for some number of years, it was a constant in our lives, one of the threads that we followed that kept us pointed in roughly the same direction. What I recall is that no matter the context, no matter all of the other things that had happened in the moments before and after, in those few moments of blessing, we would both melt a little bit. Our shoulders would drop, our hearts would open to each other. It was this tiny micro moment of love and connection there in the space between, in that space of connection before they went out into the world. Friends, this blessing was my attempt to wrap them in love and care. It was my effort to help us all mind that gap, that threshold that they were about to cross from our safe and cozy home into a wondrous and exciting world. I was casting a little bit of a spell, one that offered love and protection from a world that I so deeply wanted them to experience. A world that I so deeply wanted them to explore, and yet a world that I knew was not without its dangers, its discriminations, its ability, its tendency even to casually do terrible things to young brown women. If they were going to cross that threshold, and I wanted them to, I also wanted to wrap them in as much love and care as I could to equip them with some spiritual armor that might help them as they went out into the world. What we take with us when we cross these thresholds, it matters. Threshold. Say that with me, folks. Threshold. Like, it's one of those words that feels good in your mouth, at least it does to me. And threshold, like all good, juicy words, has an interesting and somewhat mysterious history. When we look at its root, what we find is that the first part is pretty self-explanatory, right? Thresh is from Old English and German for tread, pointing us in a literal sense toward this movement of moving through a doorway. But the second part is where etymologists claim ignorance or mystery, and I claim prerogative imagination. Hold? You don't know what that word means or why it is attached to a word that we use to describe moving through and between spaces? Come on now. You all know what that means, right? It turns out that if we dig a little deeper into the origins of this word, a lot more opens up. But for sure, there is a sense of crossing and a question of what holds. In her not yet published book on thresholds, Reverend Karen Herring, a dear friend and colleague, and I have to say a huge inspiration and resource for this sermon. In her not yet published book on thresholds, Reverend Karen Herring writes, "The origins of the word threshold are disputed, but some say it comes from an old Germanic word meaning to thresh, to separate the grain or the nourishing part of a plant from the inedible chaff, to take what feeds us and helps us grow and leave the rest behind. Notably, though, the act of threshing is not a gentle plucking or simple sorting, setting the grain to one side and the chaff to the other. It typically requires a fair amount of force, excuse me. I am fighting with allergies. So let me get back to Karen's words. She writes, it typically requires a fair amount of force and time to loosen the grain from the plant's fierce grip. Threshing by hand is a laborious act of flailing the plants on a threshing floor, a flat, smooth surface made of earth, stone, or wood. When possible, animals have been enlisted to crush the plants by walking in circles on it, trampling it underfoot, sometimes dragging a board over it. Reverend Karen goes on to write, whether by hand or machine, the task of threshing is followed by a second process called winnowing, to sort the grain from the chaff after they have been separated. Winnowing is often done by the wind, lifting the lighter chaff and blowing it away, while the heavier grain settles to the ground to be gathered up and stored. Old methods of winnowing used a shovel, a fan, or a basket to throw the broken pieces of plants into the air, allowing the wind to carry the chaff away. Some barns were built with small winnowing doors positioned to channel the wind inside, where it would assist this lifting and tossing and sorting. And often, the work of threshing and winnowing was a community labor, a gathering of muscle and breath strong enough to break down what had been cultivated and to recover from within the seeds and sustenance needed for the future. Karen finishes by saying, no wonder the word threshold is so evocative, reminding us to separate what can be carried forward as nourishment from the chaff that sometimes hides it. What do we carry forward? What is it that nourishes us? What do we leave behind? And how much force does that separation take? Let's pause here a moment, friends. I want to invite you to think about the thresholds that you or that we have crossed in the last year or so. Or maybe to bring to mind a threshold that you see coming in the near future. Perhaps you're already in that doorway, already in that space between, or on its known side, looking into that next movement, the one that carries you over the edge and into the unknown. Maybe this is a year in which you graduate or have graduated from school, you started a new job, perhaps you lost someone for the first time. Maybe a relationship started, or you got clean or sober, or you started therapy. What thresholds have you moved through in this last year? Feel free to share them in the chat, or maybe just write them down on a piece of paper that you have nearby so that you can take them in by externalizing them, by really putting them out there so that you can see what it is that you have moved through. Appreciate these movements for what they are. Appreciate the accomplishments. And what thresholds did we move through as a church? We went online in the space of a weekend, a little over a year ago. We invited folks into our homes, even if it was over Zoom. We got closer, even as we were physically apart. As a church, we opened the doors of our sanctuary virtually to folks who had long been curious, but who had stayed away. We took a leap of faith and finished one major construction project and started another. We moved past the fear of the bad that might happen and placed our hearts in the beauty we knew we could create together. We started the process of letting go of an old idea of policing in favor of systems that ensure that everyone flourishes, and so many others. Let's take a moment to take in all of those thresholds that we crossed. And please thank yourself. Thank yourself for moving through these thresholds, and maybe give yourself a moment of rest before you move through the next one. Here is my point, church. Attending to thresholds invites us to pay attention not just to what is on one side or the other, but of the space between and how we move through it. It invites us to wonder about the things that we take with us, the things we leave behind, and what we need for the journey that we're going on. And we are going on a journey, church. We are growing and changing. Staff are leaving, and others who we don't even know yet are already dreaming of us and their ministry with us. The world is changing as we try to emerge from this pandemic, and we are changing and shaping that world that we will come back into. We, all of us, are on that cusp, looking back from where we've been, looking out into that as yet unmade world. In large and small ways, we have the power and the responsibility to shape it, to cultivate in our lives the qualities that we want to infuse the world with. And so, church, I offer you and us this blessing on our journey. May the long-time sun shine upon you. May all love surround you. And may the pure light within you guide your way on. Satnam, may it be so, and amen. And now let's join Fazia and Franco in a musical reflection for all that is our life. For all that is our life, for the many, many things that we are thankful for. Friends, please join me in offering this blessing. I just shared it in the chat. Perhaps you know it. If you feel moved, say this to yourselves, say this to each other. May the long-time sun shine upon you. May all love surround you. And may the pure light within you guide your way on. May it be so. Go in peace. Amen. And will you join me in singing Go Now in Peace, sung by Mary and Franco? Dear ones, we have come to the end of our time together, and as we depart, I invite you to extinguish your chalice and type in the chat if you feel moved, "I carry the flame," so that we know that you are carrying the flame as we go forth until we gather together again. May it be so, and amen.